Hello, beautiful. So, as you may know, I just completed the Mind Body Eating Coach certification, and today I am joined by the founder and primary teacher, Marc David. Marc is the author of two best-selling novels, The Slow Down Diet and Nourishing Wisdom. He is the host of the Psychology of Eating podcast. Marc and the team at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating are dedicated to helping people around the world see the wisdom in their food and body challenges and use that wisdom to transform the way they think, eat, and live. I absolutely loved getting to learn from you, and I'm so excited for you to get to learn from him today. So, without further ado, welcome Marc to your Body is Not the Problem podcast.
Leah, thank you so much. Thanks for the great introduction. I feel honored.
Of course, very happy to have you here. To start, would you mind telling us a bit more about you and your body image journey, please?
Me and my body image journey. You know, I'm a child of the late 1950s. So when I grew up, it was all about comic books, it was all about superheroes. And it was, to me, I thought that I should aspire to being a superhero. And all the comic book superheroes, they were large, they were muscular. They didn't appear, as far as I can tell, to have any body fat. They were totally cut and buff. And I literally thought, like, this is what you do. This is where you want to get to. This is what you aspire to. So I remember as a kid thinking, why isn't my body changing to look like that? And what do I need to do to get there? So that was always that was the most fascinating part of my journey. I think it probably took me till about age 9 or 10 to realize, I don't think life is taking me there. Especially when I looked around me because I didn't see many people matching that body type. But it still lived inside me. And I remember still thinking, I'm not good enough, or I'm not measuring up, or there's something I'm not doing right in order to get where I need to go to look muscular and superhero-like.
It's so interesting how so many of us have compared our bodies to fictional characters. It's like either it's superheroes or Disney princesses with the really small waists. And it takes a while to be like, oh, maybe that's not healthy, or maybe that's not actually sustainable or doable. And like you said, you grew up and you didn't actually really see anyone looking like that. But it's like a superhero. That sounds pretty cool. So it makes sense, but it's a very interesting thing to hear of how it can impact someone's body image.
It all seems so real when we're young. And it's so aspirational because we look at whatever it is that occurs as heroic to us, or whatever it is that we believe we should aspire to. When you see something on the big screen, or you see something on the TV or in the videos, or back then in the magazines, comic books, it seems as if that's the reality that we are meant to live into. And to me, it's an interpretation of the child's mind. This is who I should be. And I was just falling in accord with what I felt was, this is how I'm being instructed. And it took me, I don't know, until my late 20s to start to realize, oh, wait a second. I have to actually occupy the body that I have. And yeah, I could change it. And yes, I can get fit. And yes, I can weight lift and I can do all these different things. But there was something magical that happened for me when I just one day realized, oh, it starts with me. It starts with what I have right now. That was a special moment.
It's very powerful to have that awareness and to just accept that you only get the one body, right? It's like you can't trade it in for a superhero's body. So to be able to own the one that you're living in is a very powerful thing, and something that we talked a lot about in the program of you can't sell a car before you own it, which I love that analogy. It was very helpful for that concept. But my first question for you is actually, can you please give us an intellectual intervention for someone who is afraid of gaining weight?
What a great question. There's a lot of people afraid to gain weight. The people who are afraid to gain weight oftentimes It's because they already have extra weight and they don't want to gain more, or they might have the body that they want and they don't want to gain more. And sometimes people actually need to gain weight, but they don't want to gain more. And that's one of the hardest cliffs, I think, to talk a human being off of is this this fear of I'm going to gain weight. And for me, the first thing I look at is, what's the level of fear that a person has around gaining weight? A lot of people have a lot of fear about that. There's a lot of concern, there's a lot of anxiety, such that every moment, every day, every second, every meal, every snack, that's the conversation that's going on. Oh my God, if I eat this, I'm going to gain weight. Or if I eat these carbs, I'm going to gain weight. Or if I eat these nuts, I'm going to gain whatever it is we think is going to make us gain weight. It's usually some version of food, maybe other than salad and other than water, that's going to make me gain weight. And what's fascinating is when we build up enough fear in the system, and it's impossible to determine what is enough fear for any given human being. But if there's a constant background fear, that fear is literally interpreted by the body as a danger or a threat. When do you and I feel fear? We feel fear when something's threatening us. When does any animal feel fear? They feel fear when they're being threatened. So when we're being threatened, we go into a stress response. We go into the physiologic sympathetic nervous system dominance fight or flight response, which, by the way, is designed to serve us for about 2 to 3 minutes. So in that 2 to 3 minutes of a stress response, when a lion is chasing you or a creature is trying to attack you or eat you, nature knows you only have about 2 or 3 minutes. Something's going to happen. You can either get away, you're going to defeat the creature, or it's going to eat you. So in that 2 to 3 minutes, you and I have an amazing metabolism. And in those 2 or 3 minutes, we have heightened sensory awareness. In those 2 to 3 minutes, we have a very strong calorie burning metabolism. Our cortisol is really high. Our stress hormones are really high. And then what happens is we keep that stress response because when I'm constantly worried in fear about gaining weight, I'm in a constant state of stress. So that state that's meant to last 2 or 3 minutes is all of a sudden lasting all my waking day. And then when I get up in the morning, and it's always there. So when we have an always present in the background ongoing stress response, that physiochemical state will signal the body, strangely enough, to store weight and store fat and not build muscle, which is everything a person would not want to happen when it comes to weight. So you want to be building muscle, you don't want to be storing fat, and you don't want your calorie burning metabolism slowing down. But the constant state of fear, which is the same as saying stress, which is the same as saying anxiety, which is really the same as saying self-judgment, that'll put you in a stress response because the brain doesn't distinguish between a real or an imagined threat. So you can be chased by a lion and you can be in a full-blown stress response. You could imagine being chased by a lion and be in a very intense stress response with all the physiochemical changes. Cortisol is the main sort of chemical culprit in all of that. When we're constantly in a stress state, we're constantly releasing cortisol. We'll release more insulin at the same time because those two hormones track each other. And all the research points to when you're hyper producing or hyper secreting cortisol and insulin, once again, it'll signal the body to store weight, store fat, not build muscle. So the point is, if you're going to worry about fat, you're actually creating the conditions for it. You're creating the favorable conditions to deposit fat on the body. So it's a strange twist of fate, isn't it? How the thing that we're fearing is actually being invited in by our physiology when we're fearing it. So we have to learn to train our mind.
I think alongside like the fear of gaining weight, so many of the women that I speak to, because they're so afraid of gaining weight and because of how we've been influenced to think about food, when I encourage them to eat more food, it's like that doesn't make sense. How is me eating more not going to result in more weight gain? Would you mind expanding on how eating more doesn't always result in more weight on one's body, please?
Yeah, such a good question, Leah. I think what happens for a lot of people is that we've learned very early on, even if you didn't learn it, somehow you've absorbed from the environment that the more food I eat, the more weight I gain. And there's a level where that's true. So caloric intake and energy expenditure would technically need to balance themselves out. So we would sort of manage our weight. Now, what's interesting then is we've created this thing called weight loss dieting. And since about the late 1950s, there's been a golden rule of weight loss, which is eat less and exercise more. So if you want to lose weight or not gain it, you have to eat less and exercise more. Now, that formula works for some people. And if it worked for all people, it would have worked for all people a long time ago. So what happens is for a majority, I'm going to say this just observationally over the years and decades, for a majority of people that are going on some type of weight loss diet, they are underfeeding, they are under eating, they're going too low in calorie. Oftentimes, not only are they going too low in calorie, but they're going too low in one or two or more of the macronutrients, protein, fat, carbohydrate. So when we're going too low in calorie and or too low in a particular macronutrient, especially protein or fat, what happens is the brain takes notice, body takes notice, and the body's saying, wait a second, I need food. I need essential fats. Fat is essential to life. I need protein, amino acids, essential for life, and I'm not getting enough of it. And the brain wisely concludes, well, I must be in a famine or I must be on a desert island. Now, if you and I were all of a sudden shipwrecked on a desert island and there was no food, brain would figure that out and the body would change, metabolism would change. So our survival metabolism, when there's not enough food, is that metabolism literally slows down. Thermic efficiency, calorie burning metabolism literally slows down. And in starvation conditions, the body will store weight, store fat, and once again, it won't build muscle. Your body will preferentially not build a single ounce of muscle because muscle building takes a lot of nutrition. So you don't want to be wasting the valuable food morsels that you're getting to try to build muscle. You want to be able to use those to have some caloric energy. So essentially, dieting, low calorie dieting, is training the body to decrease calorie burning metabolism. Just the opposite of what people want. If you want to lose weight, you want to train the body to burn fat, burn calories more, to have a higher thermic efficiency. Once again, we have to consider that the brain is actually doing the right thing as far as it's concerned. It's trying to figure the situation out. It's not getting enough food, so it slows down calorie burning capacity. So I've just worked with so many long-term dieters over the years, and they're eating a meager amount of food, meager amount of calories, or they're going really low fat or really low protein or both. And they complain, I don't lose weight. And for a majority of those people, they actually need to reboot, retrain their metabolism. So you actually have to eat more food to give the body the signal that, hey, you're not on a desert island. You're safe. You don't need to be in a survival response where you're slowing down calorie burning metabolism. And it shocks a lot of people. when you put them on more food and they start to lose weight because your body is actually finally relaxing. It's going into a physiologic relaxation response. And in that place, you're decreasing the artificial levels of cortisol and insulin that you're building up, which are causing the body to store weight and store fat and not build muscle. So we need to train the body how to be an eater. Dieting trains us how not to be an eater.
At the end of the day, it's like when you're dieting, oftentimes it's because you're afraid of gaining weight. You're then also afraid of gaining weight if you eat more, but sometimes you just have to like push through and try those uncomfortable things that you're resisting almost because it feels easier to do the diet sometimes. It feels easier to do that than face your fears of thinking you're going to be unworthy and unlovable and less beautiful if you do gain weight. And I feel like it's definitely conditioned into a lot of our minds that eating more equals more weight, but are you really getting what you want from the diet that you're doing from the low calories? And I guess what are some ways that the people who have tried the low calorie diets or are currently doing the low calorie diets, like how can they know when they're actually eating enough? Because they've gone so long maybe eating such a low amount of food that they think their body is surviving off of just that small amount of food. How do
Mhm.
they know when they've actually hit enough food? I think is my question.
It's a really great question. A lot of people don't know because they've been suppressing their appetite and or they've been fighting their appetite. And when you suppress your appetite artificially, I shouldn't eat, I shouldn't eat, and you've been forcing your will upon it, you can start to lose body wisdom. So there's a couple of things to do. One thing I recommend to people, oddly enough, is number one, get rid of your scale. Because what happens is everybody is using the scale to determine whether they should be happy or sad, whether they should be gleeful or mad. Because I get on the scale, if I've lost half a pound, I'm a good girl or a good boy. And if I gained a pound, I'm a bad girl or a bad boy. And oh my God. And the scale becomes the measurement for how we should feel about ourselves and how we should feel about life. And it just doesn't work. It is not a useful tool. It's not a useful tool for the mind, the heart, the soul. And it's actually not a useful tool for the body because it doesn't create body wisdom. It doesn't create body intelligence. The scale is telling you what you should feel. It's a lifeless, unintelligent little machine. So once you let go of the scale, then all of a sudden it's just me and food and how do I feel? And we have to begin to rediscover our relationship with food. What do you like? What gives you pleasure? Are you present when you eat? What happens is so many people who are on a diet, who are low calorie eating, who are trying to lose weight, are seeing food as the enemy. And if I'm seeing food as the enemy, food is something bad, then how do you deal with an enemy? You want to deal with them really quickly. You don't want to hang with the enemy a long time. So we eat fast. Majority of dieters are not sitting there savoring every bite. They're not being present to food, they're being absent to food. They're being somewhat absent to their body. So the only way to tell if I have had enough is to begin to slow down and listen to the body. The body needs slow when it comes to food and our appetite. The body needs time. The brain needs time to determine how much have I eaten? Have I gotten enough nutrition? All the research from decades ago show that it takes the brain approximately 20 minutes to realize it's full on average. What that's saying is our physiology needs time to suss it all out. So our job is to be present with food, relax with it, enjoy it, savor it, because then your body's getting everything it wants. When your body eats, the body wants food, but it's more than the body wanting food. This is what makes humans different from the creatures, from the animals. Animals tend to feed, humans eat, humans dine. Animals don't need a nice dimly lit restaurant and tablecloths and nice music in the background. No, you just give them a bowl of food and throw it anywhere. You're going to just throw it on the ground and they're happy. Doesn't matter if you play music and do candlelight. So they're going to handle their food. They're going to eat it quickly, which is what you want to do in nature, because in nature, there's other creatures competing for your food. Humans are designed differently. Humans are designed, every single human being is designed to optimally digest, assimilate, and calorie burn food in the physiologic relaxation response. You need to be relaxed to optimally digest, assimilate, calorie burn food, and you need to be relaxed to have your optimum appetite regulation. But if I think food is the enemy, I'm going to eat it really fast. So then what happens? I eat food really fast. And have you ever had the experience where you even ate your favorite meal, but you ate it fast, you didn't pay attention, and you kind of finished and you say, my belly feels full, but my mouth is feeling hungry. I still want to eat. And you still want to eat because the mind, the body, the brain is craving experience from food. It craves pleasure. It craves taste. It craves aroma. It craves texture. Our tongue, our sense of taste, our sense of smell is very evolved. So we want what we want, and we want to experience it and feel good, eat our meal, pay attention to it, and have a sense of satisfaction. Because when I'm satisfied, my appetite is naturally regulated. I'm not forcing, like, oh my God, I'm still hungry. So that's a learning process. Most of us haven't learned how to do that. We learn from a young age, you just eat fast like everybody else. We're either eating fast food or we're eating food fast. And we need to train ourselves. We need to retrain ourselves to be a more enlightened human being who eats.
It's like it's craving everything that diets try to deprive us of. But it makes me think of how many meals I ate back when I was doing so many diets that I would not eat nowadays because they did not actually taste good. But I was eating them because I thought I had to eat them, but then I was eating them so stressed. And I remember I did a gut health test and I had like zero good gut bacteria in my gut according to the test. And all my friends were like, "What do you mean? Like, you eat so quote unquote clean. How do you not have that?" It's like, I was so stressed when I was eating and it was getting rid of all of the benefits from the food. And so it's interesting how our bodies are doing these things because it's on our team, because it things we're trying to survive. And so I guess it's bringing our bodies back into safety to be like, no, it's okay. I will keep nourishing you. I will give you the pleasure with food and I will actually listen to my appetite and things like that.
Yeah, it's you just mentioned something I think it's important to highlight, bringing the body into a sense of safety. So when we're not safe, we're on alert. When we don't feel safe, we're in some version of the stress response, meaning I need to be super alert. Something must be wanting to eat me. Something must be wanting to attack me. I'm not safe. What would make a human body not feel safe? The body doesn't feel safe when it's being threatened or attacked. Who's attacking and threatening your body? Nobody really, except for you. How do we threaten or attack the body? We're speaking unkind to it. We're yelling at it silently. We're forcing it to do things it doesn't like to do or it ought not to. We're starving it. We're over exercising it. We're berating it. We're belittling it. We're bullying it with our words. with our silent conversation. So the body doesn't feel safe because it isn't in a strange way. It's under siege, but it's under siege from us. And once again, that stress response is enough to harm digestion, harm assimilation. When you're skewing digestion and assimilation, the net result is you end up excreting nutrients, you end up excreting vitamins, minerals, other substances, and you lose your appetite regulation when we're in stress, i.e., silently belittling the body. So, in order for the body to be safe, you and I, need to create safety with it. We need to give it messages that it's safe, just like you would give your young child a message. Don't worry, it's okay. Big hug. I love you. You're safe. It's okay. I'm here to protect you. The monster's not going to get you. We have to sort of say that to ourselves in order for the body to relax so it can have its optimum metabolism.
One of the analogies I think you used was walking alongside yourself along a sidewalk. And when you see your body as the enemy, if you were walking beside your enemy along the sidewalk, would you feel relaxed or would you feel stressed? You would feel stressed. And when you're seeing your body and the food and everything you do throughout the day as an enemy because you're afraid of gaining weight, it makes sense that you would be stressed all day long.
Yeah, it's not a fun way to live life. That's for
No,
sure.
not at all. Speaking from experience, I do not recommend it.
Mm.
So, one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, it came up because I saw another body image creator on Instagram share that she was eating Alfredo even though she was dairy intolerant. And at first, I thought she was sharing the example to quote unquote like disrespect one's body. Then I reminded myself she's allowed to do whatever she wants with her body and her social media. And we also don't know like what actually happens to her when she eats the dairy. Maybe she just gets acne. But to me, it got me thinking about respecting your body versus like listening to a craving or having food freedom. What advice would you give for finding the line between respecting your body and having food freedom?
Hmm. Another great question. So, respecting your body and having food freedom. I think it's a dance. I think it's an ever evolving relationship between me, my body, and food. So, the first question I think that's useful to ask ourselves is, what do I want from my relationship with food? It's a relationship. It's your longest term relationship that you'll probably ever have. From the time you're born till the time you die, you're eating. So I'm in a relationship with food. You're in a relationship with your partner, your parent, your friend. How do you do the relationship? What do you want out of the relationship with your friend? What are the interests? What are the commonalities? What do you want from being in relationship with a partner? You get together, you be in relationship because you find common ground. So, what do I want from my relationship with food? I think it's an important question. There are people out there who will say to you, I eat whatever I want. I'm gonna die anyway. I don't want to have to watch my food. I just want to enjoy what I eat. I want to eat whatever I want. And that's what they want from their relationship with food. And as long as it's a conscious choice, I think to myself, great, that's your choice. It's not my choice, but that's your choice. For me personally, when I ask myself that question, I wish for food to put me in the best probability zone for health. I wish to feel good after I eat. I wish to feel good when I eat. I want food to taste good. I want food to give me pleasure. I would like food to give me energy. I would like food to not make me gain too much weight. I would like food to help me maintain muscle. So okay, I've determined what I wish to have from food. So now I can manage and guide my relationship with food based on those guidelines about what I want. So, yeah, well, that food looks really good and looks really tasty, but you know something? If I eat that, I know I'm not going to feel good. If I eat a big piece of birthday cake, I'm not going to feel so good. Little piece of birthday cake, I could do it. So that's for me, it's a conversation between I want to respect what I want from my relationship with food. And food freedom, anybody can eat whatever they want. We all have that freedom. But what happens is we get into a couple of knots around that. We get a little tied up because, but wait a second, I don't want to gain weight, but I really want to have pleasure from food. So okay. Okay, so great. So let's start to figure out foods that give you pleasure. And you can say, well, the foods that give me pleasure, it's just ice cream and it's just donuts and it's just cake and it's just soda. That's what gives me pleasure. And if somebody says that to me, but I don't want to gain weight and I want to be healthy. Well, that sounds like something a 6-year-old would say. Really, that's what I was saying when I was 6. You know, just how come we're not just eating ice cream at every meal? Like, what's the problem? To the child's mind, if something tastes good, then it's good for you. How could something that tastes so good not be good for me? It doesn't make sense to the child's mind. To the adult mind, we start to understand nutrition a little better. We start to understand the body a little bit better. So sometimes we have to evolve our relationship with food. We have to evolve our sense of taste. You can evolve your sense of taste. You can evolve your sense of smell. You can evolve any of your senses. You can understand how to listen better to music and appreciate good music. You can evolve your eyes, your sense of art, your sense of beauty, and to appreciate certain things, certain colors, nature, whatever it is. And taste is something we can evolve. Like, oh, okay, so I know, okay, I heard salads are good for me. So what do I have to do to cultivate a taste for that? Or I heard fruits are good for me. How do I cultivate a taste for that? I heard high quality foods or organic foods, or how do I cultivate a taste for that? So it's a relationship, it's a dance, it's an exploration, I think.
It's such a simple question of like, what do you want your relationship with food to be? But it's so powerful because I don't think anyone asks themselves that question.
When you ask the question, it's you can you can then empower yourself with those answers. And it's the same as how you would guide any relationship. If you were single and you want to be in a relationship, what are you thinking? You're thinking to yourself, okay, well, what do I want in a person? What do I want in a partner? What do I want in another human being? There's certain things you want, there's certain things you don't want. And if you're smart, you're going to then go about finding the person who matches the things that you want and definitely doesn't have the things that you absolutely positively don't.
So I know many of us can recognize that our mothers or our parents have influenced our food and body challenges, but I find it really interesting how you share how our relationship with food and body can track our relationship with our parents. Do you mind expanding on that, please?
Yes, I've particularly noticed this more for women and mothers. I don't see it as much with men, but maybe I haven't looked enough. But I've particularly noticed for women that their relationship with food and body will have certain, and it doesn't apply to every single person. So I'm just making a general statement that for a woman, her relationship with food and body will tend to track her relationship with her mother. So if relationship with mother was very unclear, very fuzzy, very contentious in certain ways, then it will be easier to have a contentious, unclear relationship with food and body. When a woman can rest more comfortably in a good relationship with her mother, then it will be easier for her to have a positive relationship with her own body. So I think it's just a good question to ask oneself, how is my relationship with my own body? How's my relationship with food in any way similar to my relationship with my mother? And it could just be you take an inventory, write down some of the features of your relationship with food. My God, I'm afraid of it, or I love it, or I love getting pleasure from food, or I'm just constantly scared about it. I don't like my body. And then ask yourself, how's my relationship with my mother? Like, what are some of the key phrases that characterize that relationship? Because, for a woman, you're modeling. So men are modeling after their dads in general. We're going to model off of our same sex parent. We will model off of both our parents for sure, but we will particularly model off of our same sex parent. It's just how we're built. And what will often happen is that you'll model after your mother's relationship with food and body. Is very possible. So if mom was rocky or shaky about her relationship with her own body, that will tend to get transmitted to daughters or children. Just what I've noticed.
If someone notices that there is a connection between their relationship with food and their relationship with their mother, is there like a first step that you would recommend, or is it mainly just about having that awareness that there is the similarity?
I think awareness is always the first step in anything. If you wish to grow, we have to be aware. Like, okay, well, how do I need to grow? Well, one way that we grow is we grow through relationship. And perhaps the most key relationship you'll ever have is with your parents, number one, your partner, number two, and your children, number three, or some order thereof. But parents are always the first and most important relationship, because while you're living in your parents' house, that's your most important. Siblings can be close. So awareness is the first step. Oh, okay. I'm aware that there might be some kind of connection here. And if, I notice that there is a connection, what I have seen is that as we heal and evolve our relationship with our parent or parents, our relationship with food and body gets a lot better. Because what happens is, if I'm angry at my mother, angry at my father, if I'm in reaction to them, I don't want to be like my mother. I don't want to be like my father. Yeah, sure. I mean, pick and choose who you want to be like and you don't want to be like. But what happens is, for a lot of us, we have a big plate of energy around, I
Mhm.
want to be like her. I don't want to be like him. And that gets in the way of relationship. Or my mother did this, my father did that. They weren't there for me. They hurt me. They abused me. Whatever it is your parents did or didn't do that we're angry about. Now, as long as we are holding our parent or parents as unforgiven, again, in my experience, it's harder for us to evolve into our own adulthood. Because if I'm pissed off at my mother or pissed off at my dad, there's a part of me that's still living in their house, even if I'm not living in their house. There's a part of me that's still living there because they're always present. Mad at mother, mad at father. Ultimately, I think it's helpful for a human being to get to the place where you don't have to approve of any harms that your parents did to you. It's not about approving of what they did. It's about forgiving and moving on and letting go and understanding that they were human beings who did the best that they could do, given the information that they had. At some point, they were kids. At some point, they were teenagers. At some point, they were just young adults fumbling around trying to raise kids. They didn't know what they were doing, just like we don't always know what we're doing. So when I can see my parents as just human beings, not just my parents, but okay, you're human and you did the best you could. there's a relaxation that happens, there's a letting go that happens. But as long as one of my parents is unforgiven and I have anger or I have resentment or I have upset or I have undigested just kind of life experience with them, that can often become unwanted eating challenge. So we will often express unfinished business in a relationship by reaching symbolically to food. I'm turning to food to feel better because this is background tension. This is background. Mad at my father, eat food, I feel better. Mad at my mother, eat a bunch of food, feel better. So we learn as kids, feel bad, eat food, feel better. Be in a difficult home situation, have a difficult parent, eat ice cream, feel better. Eat sugar, feel better. And I really do feel better. So we take that strategy into adulthood. So instead of looking at it as I have a problem with my relationship with food, I have a problem with food, I've got a willpower problem. Very few people have a willpower problem with food. We're turning to food always for a good reason. It's helping us de-stress. It's helping us relax unwanted emotions temporarily.
After being or spending years in diet culture, learning all of this, it's just been so interesting. So I'm so happy to have you today sharing this with everyone else on the podcast because I know everyone else is going to find it so interesting also and so valuable and helpful for them in becoming eaters. But to close out, I have two quick questions that I ask all of my guests. And the first one is, what do you wish you could go back and tell younger Mark?
What a great question. What do I wish I can go back and tell younger Mark? I would probably say that don't worry about what other people think or don't think about you, that you're lovable and okay just as you are.
I love that. The second question is, what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out trying to learn to love their body more?
If you're just starting out trying to learn to love your body more, I believe it's all about doing the little things. It's little tiny baby steps that make you feel good about being you and being in your body. And sometimes those are very simple things. It could be, I like wearing certain clothes, they make me feel good. Great, put on those clothes and feel how good it feels to have those clothes on. I like wearing certain colors. Great, put on those colors. I like certain jewelry. Great, put that on. So it's doing the little things and noticing that, oh, I'm enjoying this. This gives me pleasure when I wear this, when I put on this piece of jewelry. This gives me pleasure when I don't know, put on this makeup, use this shampoo. I feel good about myself. I feel good in my body when I'm in the water. A lot of people say that.
Yep.
Great. Get in the water and feel good about your body and make sure that in that moment you say to yourself, yeah, this feels good. So it's learning to capture the moments when you feel good about being in your body. Because otherwise, we're constantly giving the body the message you shouldn't feel good about being in your body. Why shouldn't you feel good about being in your body? Because your body looks like this, it looks like that, too tall, whatever it is, weight here, fat there. Okay, enough of that. Let's also have moments where, oh, it feels good to be in a body. It feels good to breathe fresh air. It really feels good when I take my body into nature. It feels good when I do a certain kind of yoga or when I dance. So it's starting to do perhaps a feel good inventory or a pleasure inventory. Like you write down everything you could possibly think of: persons, places, things, thoughts, feelings, beliefs, experiences, activities that give you a little pleasure where you can say, feels good to be me, feels good to be alive in this body.
Such amazing advice. Because again, your body is designed to feel good. It doesn't want to feel crappy, but sometimes we don't even let ourselves feel good. So I absolutely love that advice. And again, just thank you so much for taking time out of your day to share all of this knowledge with us. Again, it's going to be so valuable and so helpful. And just thank you very much for being on the podcast today.
And Leah, thanks for doing this. Thanks for the great conversation, the great questions. I so appreciate you.
Of course, thank you. And just remember that your body is not the problem.